Greetings, Tezos Nation. Welcome to another edition of TezTalks Live. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. Joining me today is Retro Manni, digital artist, storyteller, and creator of the ever-expanding Retroman universe. The Retroman universe, for those who might not know, is an ambitious project encompassing multiple mediums, from digital art to music to gaming and beyond. Founded and developed right here in the Tezos ecosystem. Manni's here for his second appearance on TezTalks Live to bring us up to speed on the progress of his impressive project and what he's learned from the endeavor to bring his creative vision to life. Hi, Manni. Where are you right now, and how's the weather?
I'm in the UK, and the weather's actually very nice considering this time of year.
It looks very sunny coming through the
Yeah, I
window.
can feel the sun coming through the window, which is a great sign.
Beautiful.
Thanks for having me as well.
Yeah, of course. Given that this isn't your first appearance here on TezTalks Live, I'll dispense with our traditional tell us about your background opening and ask instead if you can introduce the Retroman universe, its origins, and your larger vision for the project as a whole. The floor is yours to introduce Retroman to the world once again.
Okay, thanks, Stu. So Retroman is an idea that came about really because I spent a lot of time on X Spaces, Twitter Spaces at the time, back in 22 and 23, and people confused my name because they could only see a portion of it, and they used to call me Retroman and not Retro Manni, and I thought that was quite novel. And I created a piece that took place in space. A lot of my pieces were cyberpunk and kind of based on Earth, but this one piece I did was set in space. It was a digital painting and animation. And I noticed I did a portrait of myself in that painting wearing a helmet. And then I thought that would make quite a cool PFP. So I just did a bit of work on it, got rid of the kind of the face so you couldn't see the face anymore, made the helmet purple. And straight away, I think it just fit the visual of Retroman. And people really started feeling that there was something there, I think, when they started speaking to me. But I hadn't made anything. So shortly after, I thought I'm going to dive in and actually start creating artwork that is around this character. Let's see how far I can push it. So for practically nearly 3 years, I started making piece after piece, developing this world that actually was something that I'd started as a filmmaker, in terms of just the concept and the idea and the themes, but never really honed in on a character. And so I used the Retroman sort of title and character and the fact that I could mint artwork on Tezos to just create this whole universe that I've been doing for many years now. And I feel like I'm really, really far along and people take it seriously now, as opposed to this funny kind of cartoon that I was having a go at. It's now completely part of my identity.
Okay. And you mentioned you've been doing this for many, many years now. How would you describe the journey toward realizing your vision for Retroman so far?
I think it's as someone who used to make art and particularly art house films, and I would make things really for an audience and a very particular niche audience. And my background's in fine art as well, so I would be very picky about, and I guess somewhat snobbish about the kind of films I would create and how I would tell the stories because of the particular audience I was telling it to. And one thing I started to realize when I was releasing work on Tezos was that doesn't actually matter anymore. I'm no longer bound because we're in this Web3 world where it's different now. The audience almost comes second and the artist comes first. That's what I started realizing. I probably should have realized that first. And so I just let everything go. And I think I became more authentic in my voice and realized doesn't matter if it's childish, doesn't matter if it's to do with comics and cartoons and computer games. I'm just going to tell a story that is completely me, 100% me. And I think that's the whole journey has been me going step by step closer towards like a really unadulterated version of just who I really am.
Okay. And along the way, in the approximately year and a half since we last spoke, it seems like, and you've mentioned that you've made significant progress in that endeavor. Can you tell us about a few of the most important milestones in the Retroman universe's progress since your last TED Talks appearance?
Yeah, so since the last appearance, it was really just getting started in terms of me forming a consistent path for it. Since then, there is a story now. There is a defined story that most of it exists in my head and on notes and on paper and sketchbooks, but it's starting to drip feed through a lot of the pieces that I'm creating. Um, the real the real story started coming through in the collection that I'd started when we last spoke, which was the RMU Gamer collection.
Mm-hmm.
And so these were told through kind of Star Fox, if anyone remembers the game Star Fox, through kind of Star Fox interactions where you'd see the characters talk while the ships are flying.
Mm-hmm.
And so through that, I developed more characters and dialogue, and that started telling a story where there was an arrival of Retroman getting to this star base, which was a place he was being taken to and kind of shown the ropes, sort of thing, by this alien race. And it kind of just snowballed from there because people started realizing that that was my thing then, that Retroman was my thing. So I'm just going to shut this blind because I think the light's going to go. And I started doing collaborations with people. So some artists like Gogolitis and Limbo, who are some of my favorite artists, started coming in and doing their sort of take and contributing to that universe. And that then influenced the way I was telling the story as well, which became more and more interesting. And I think the two biggest milestones for me were making actual short films. And the first was a Retroman Origins piece, because I thought, okay, I've been telling this story from the perspective of Retroman, but now I've got these extra characters. How do I go all the way back so that we can see maybe how Retroman came about? So I created a short film, which is called Episode 1,
Mm-hmm.
and it shows how one of the characters, who's called Nilani, which translates to like the blue one or blue woman or blue lady, how she is like kind of called upon by an ancient race to go and find somebody who is going to save Earth. And it really delves back. It helped me delve back into the original concept, was it being about or being inspired by like Hindu mythology and old ancient Indian
Okay.
mythology. So that piece was really a milestone when I created that, because it showed people visually in film form, which is my natural state as an artist, what this is really about. And then the second one was, then I was asked by Paul, who is a ghost, as part
Mm-hmm.
of Tezos Commission's acts, to create a piece for that, and I went all in on that. And so I basically almost recreated my original Retroman piece that I created in 3D as a short film where Retroman is arriving on Earth. So these two pieces, I think, just cemented what Retroman means to me, and hopefully got people way more interested in the concept because of the cinematic visuals.
Yeah. And speaking of those cinematic visuals, like it's one thing to hear you sort of describe this universe, but I understand you've brought a bit of a visual montage along to share with everyone, illustrating the different elements of the Retroman universe as they exist today. Can we have a look at that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just bring that up now. And I might just say a few words over the top of it, but
Please.
there is music. Just turn the volume down. So here you can see some of the films that I was talking about. So the first woman was Nilani, that I spoke about, who you can see there was originally just a pixel art character.
Mm-hmm.
And same here, these are all really low poly kind of ideas, but then brought to life. And you can also see a clip of the game there as well,
Okay.
which I'm developing, which we could talk about a little bit later. But hopefully you can start to see all these little elements come together, which show all the different characters, how much has gone into building this universe and this world.
Yeah.
It's not just this one single character I'm repeating over and over. There's lots to it, and that artwork there you might recognize was by Limbo as well, one of my favorite artists who actually recreated Milani in his style, which I thought was just a real big honor as well.
Awesome stuff. So, as you were setting out to build all of this, can you talk a bit about what led to your decision to start building the Retroman universe here in the Tezos ecosystem? Like, what was it about Tezos specifically that appealed to you?
Um, Going back, I mean, if I just talk about Web3 in general, I did come in with an idea that I wanted to share what I'd been creating. It was, you probably have to go back and watch the first interview to see exactly the whole massive story that is involved in me getting into it. But I started doing my research when I decided, okay, Web3 and trying to sell my artwork in this kind of crypto arena might be a good idea. And I just spent a lot of time researching in spaces and just figuring my way through it, and nothing resonated with me at all.
Mm.
I really felt I was out of my depth. Either I was too old or I just didn't get it. And then really randomly, I remember waking up one morning and I had a notification on my phone. And it said that Object and Taya were running a space together. And I'd very, very briefly come across both of them, but I didn't know much about them. So I thought this is my chance to jump in there, see if it's the same as all the other spaces that I'd been in, or if it's different. And it was being run by, I remember specifically, it was Wise
Mm-hmm.
and Merchant Coppola who were running the space. And instantly, just the whole energy of the space was completely different. It really was focused on the art. There was no mention of like total volume and kind of putting people down because they didn't know enough or anything like that. It was actually about how can we serve you,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a completely different mindset to what I was used to in in the research I was doing.
Okay.
So that's what just kind of convinced me that okay, I'm going to go in, and I minted my first piece on Taya, and yeah, it all kind of snowballed from there. Got involved in the community more, got to know people, worked my way in slowly, not trying to bombard and kind of just show everyone everything.
Yeah.
I guess I used a lot of my experience in the past to integrate a little better into the community, and I felt I really did belong there. So, and I'm very glad I did.
Okay. And as part of that snowball process that you're describing, I understand the world famous Tez Pole had a hand in helping you spread the word about Retroman and build some important Tezos connections. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I think not a lot of people know this, but um, Tez Pole was an interesting one because when that whole thing happened and it became so famous for both right and wrong reasons, I was initially quite defensive of it. And if you want to, you can go back and look at my tweets. I didn't delete them. Um, because I actually had a hand. I was invited by the Taya team as an artist to help curate the artwork that would go on that poll. I didn't know it was a poll, by the way. Um, and it was supposed to be an exhibition. And I remember it was Ryan Tanaka who was calling the team from, was it Miami? I think it was in Miami. And he was calling the team and he was doing video calls to show what the exhibition was going to be. And I remember seeing that pole and the kind of chicken wire or whatever was around it. And I did have some kind of apprehensions, but I've been a filmmaker for years and I've had my film screened in the worst places possible. So it didn't bother me too much. I just thought, oh, this is what it is. But obviously, it became a real thing, and then people memed it, and then I think HP Lovebooks was the first person to meme it with a piece of artwork, and then Mech started creating stuff, and then it just became this whole big thing. And I was very resistant to making artwork as part of it because people were doing it like an event on Tezos, like let's just meme this Tez Pole and make it funny. And I was really resistant, and then I gave in the end because I saw the artwork. It was so hilarious. And I thought, you know what, don't take yourself so seriously. It was like a pep talk with myself. And so I just made a piece of artwork and it literally, it took maybe about 10 minutes to make and it flew off the shelves or whatever you want to call it. And I thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to make another one. This is a lot of fun. And then I was collecting loads of pieces as well. It became something of its own beast in a way. And I actually felt that was a moment that I really felt like I was connected to the Tezos community more than I even had been before.
Mm-hmm.
So it was great. And I'm really glad I did, because those two pieces that I created ended up being the foundation for RMU Gamer, which
Okay.
I think to this day is still my most popular collection, uh,
Okay.
in terms of sales and in terms of just attention. So and it helped start the story, helped put me into a gear that made me go, okay, let's do something now.
Okay. And it seems like along the way, quite a few members of the Tezos community have stepped up to help you and collaborate with you on this project. What have you learned about this community and the people who make it up since you started building here in Tezos?
I think collaboration has been a really important part since the beginning, and even from like events run. So people like um, Tez Town, who that like those communities would run events and get everyone together, and people would make artwork for these things, and there was no barriers or limits. It was just a great way to get involved and almost give yourself a purpose to make something, especially coming from a world where you've either got to have funding
Mm-hmm.
or there's got to be some kind of commission or something like that. Now it was, oh, everybody's doing this thing, join in and take part. So I think the collaboration really stems from that. And then not just that, it's things like Taya and Object, and I think just the Tezos contract in general, allowing you to collaborate so easily and split royalties and sales and all that kind of stuff. So that's been a really important part of the culture anyway from when I started.
Mm-hmm.
As I've got to know more artists, I've then had more confidence just to reach out to them and say, just pick some of my favorite artists, and it's funny how receptive they can be.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's just allowed me to collaborate with literally some of my favorite artists. And I
Okay.
think that is part of the culture here, and long may it continue, I hope.
Long may it. Um, Speaking of those collaborations, like you popped up on my radar again recently because of posts you were sharing on X that featured clips of a game you're working on called Samsara. How much can you tell us about that?
Um, so Samsara it originally was started because there's a developer, a game maker, a game developer called Not a Number, who's been very prevalent on Tezos, and I think he was one of the first people I collected from when I entered the space. I think I collected like a Pong game version of Pong,
Mm-hmm.
um, and he'd gone on and done loads of things. I mean, he was very prolific and had done loads of different things, and he collaborated with Nifty Monkey and loads of other people and created these big game projects. Um, and we kind of started getting acquainted, and I started to get to know him a little bit through the Tezos community. But when he saw the RMU Gamer collection, he reached out and said, "We need to make this into a game." And I was always thinking I'd like to make a game, and I was even learning a little bit of Godot, which is like a developer app, how
Mm-hmm.
to make games. But I was hopeless at it. So having him reach out, it was almost like a perfect opportunity to say, "Yeah, you know what? Let's do this." And just through, I think, this totally being in sync and sharing ideas, we just evolved this very basic concept of what was originally going to be just a small game that was just interactive, of you
Mm-hmm.
being able to control this ship, um, to what's now a fully fledged game in development that's going to be released on Steam. So we've just kind of gone from something so small, collaborating and being introduced through this community, to going, how far can we push this? And I think we're now at a point where we're really seeing how far it can go, because I think it's got a lot of legs.
Okay. Can you show us what that looks like?
I can, yeah, I can. Let me just share my screen. So we are very very close to releasing a demo.
Okay.
We're just getting everything in place for the Steam page and the Kickstarter page. But let me just play this and then I'll go into detail.
Okay.
So this is our logos, not a number, and me. So this is the intro you launch from a starbase, which you
Yep.
would have seen in the series. And then here's just a few clips of you kind of firing, seeing how the environment is destructible. There's huge explosions.
Yeah.
There's lots of enemies.
It
You can.
reminds me of Raiden. Do you remember Raiden?
It's, Raiden's one of my favorite games. Massively inspired by Raiden. Um, and I hope I've got an example of the big nuke weapon, which is the Samsara. That's what the game's named after. I think it's about to fire now.
There
So
you go.
there you go. So if you collect enough crystals, you can fire that weapon.
Okay.
And there's like a strategy around using that. The strategy around using that weapon strategically to, save it right for the right moments and get you out of different
Okay.
situations. Yeah. And there's going to be a story to it as well. It's going to be very much a continuation of the RMU Gamer collection. So you kind of, if you watch all that through on in that collection, and then you kind of start the game almost at the beginning, at the end of that collection.
Okay. And it sounds so. This is the first video game project you've ever engaged with, right?
Yeah.
What have you learned in your journey to build out a video game for the first time ever?
Well, firstly, like I said, I was doing a lot of tutorials for Godot, and I was convinced I was going to make a game. I was convinced that I was going to develop it, and boy, did that change real quickly when I started doing the tutorials, feeling how lost I got. So I almost felt like I would have to go through the learning process again and make, 10, 20, 30 games before I could get to a point of being proficient. So collaborating with Not a Number was so awesome because it meant I could take all that mental stress away
Yeah.
and focus on the art and the concept. And he basically does all the heavy lifting, which is
Okay.
very liberating for me as an artist. And I
Okay.
think it's also liberating for him as well because he gets to say, we need this and we need that, create it. So I can do what I do best and he does what he does best. So the process has been great. And if I was to make another game, it would absolutely be with him.
Okay.
And I don't think I would even attempt to make one by myself again, to be honest with you.
Okay. And you mentioned that Samsara is going to be on Steam, but I understand you're also offering some Tezos-based digital collectibles associated with Samsara. What's the story with those, and where can they be found?
So can I screen share to show those as well? Just to
Sure.
give an example, just to bring those up. So the idea was to, I've been creating all this artwork for the game.
Mhm.
I'll scroll down here and walk you through it. I've been creating all this artwork for the game, and I was really quite proud of it. And I thought it's a shame that I can't really showcase this in any way. And one of my early ideas was it would be great to have like a little manual for the game where you could look
Mhm.
at all the different enemies and kind of scroll through them, and not scroll, leaf through them like a book, like a
Yeah.
booklet.
Like you
Um,
used to get with Nintendo games.
Absolutely, yeah, like Super Metroid, Mario, all those things. You'd get those books where you could see all the different enemies and graphics in a way. And at the same time, I'd come across Yestem Zero, who was creating the Zero contract, which is the ability to mint your own art fully on chain on Tezos. Um, and so I thought, well, that's a perfect opportunity to marry these two together. And I was learning more about IPFS as well and realizing, you know what, if I want to make these graphics, the graphics of this game almost immortal and really make them feel like they're worth something, it would be great to actually inscribe them directly on the blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through a really difficult process of learning how to get this to work. This is before there was an app. I'm showing you the collection now on an app called Zero Unbound.
Mm-hmm. Which is a minting and NFT marketplace, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's a minting and NFT marketplace. But when I originally started minting them, these ones down here, there was no marketplace. They were available on Object because Object would index them,
Yeah.
but that was it. So that's what I started to do. I started getting the graphics and minting them directly on chain. So what you see here, each piece is actually the token It's
Okay.
not a link to a token. It's the actual token is the artwork. And I'll just stop sharing there. But to me, that is like um, killer source material for this whole Retroman game that I'm creating and the whole
Yeah.
Retroman universe. So one day people will go, well, where's the original cells of that animation and things like that that they would do with stuff like Ghost in the Shell and Akira or classic Disney movies? I hope one day, they'll come across this on Tezos and say, well, these were the first sprites created for the game. And, part of my head goes, imagine if that was, Super Metroid, obviously legendary games. But imagine if the original sprites for Samus were minted on Tezos or,
Hmm.
on the blockchain. And I just use that as an inspiration to say this. I think this could be something special, even if you can't see it right now.
Yeah. I would like to dive a little bit further into the zero contract thing a little bit later on, but when will Samsara be playable? When can we expect to see it demoed?
The first demo, I'm very much hoping it's going to be October.
Okay.
I think it's highly likely it'll be October um, because we're just literally getting the final things together, and that includes putting all the graphics together for the promotion, which is a whole different kettle of fish compared to promoting your artwork
Yeah.
in Web3. It's like there's rules, and it becomes more like marketing. So it's a different thing altogether, but it's a learning curve. So we've just been putting all that together. So hopefully October will be the time when it's ready to demo.
Cool. This is all great stuff so far. I'm excited to learn more. But before we dive into the nitty gritty, are you ready for the world famous TezTalks lightning round?
I am, yeah.
Fabulous. Then it is lightning round time. Remember, there are no wrong answers. This is just for fun so our viewers can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
I am.
Are you a night owl or an early riser?
Dial.
Exercise or naps?
Naps.
Pizza or sushi?
Pizza.
What's your favorite country to visit for a vacation?
Italy.
Very nice. If you were elected king of the world, what's the first thing you would do?
Oh, there's so much pressure in that question. I can't. Um, I feel like everyone wants me to say world peace, so I'll say world peace, whatever that looks like.
Okay. Name one thing you will never do again.
Uh, wow, that's a difficult one. I feel like saying move house because it was horrible.
It is. It is always horrible. What's the secret to happiness?
Uh, Inner peace.
Inner peace. Do you have any pets?
No.
Okay. And finally, what is your favorite thing to do on a rainy day?
Cup of tea. I think I said that last time as well.
And it remains true to this day.
It's true, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Those were excellent answers. This concludes the Tez Talks lightning round. Let's get back into it. Now that we're somewhat caught up on the progress of the Retroman universe, I'd like to zoom out a little bit and talk about your project and the insights into the current state of Web3 and blockchain technology that you've gleaned from it so far. First off, which parts of the current blockchain ecosystem do you feel like have met your needs as an artist, trying to realize a creative vision as ambitious as Retroman?
So which part of just blockchain in general have met that desire? Or that?
Well, I mean, the next question is going to be which parts do you feel like could have met your needs better?
Okay.
So, what are the areas of strength of the current building landscape in the space?
You know what? I actually don't think too much it's the technology. I think that the part of the technology that is great is the ability to swap and exchange for a currency. That's amazing because I'm remembering back when you'd share stuff on Instagram for free.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think though the bigger parts of it are the community that rallies around blockchain is probably the most important aspect of it. Um, and that encourages me, to make stuff
Yeah.
because otherwise you're kind of always waiting for some kind of uh, someone to tell you there's this thing going on, there's this project going on, and you can apply for this, and maybe you should try and create something to apply for that. well, with this whole concept of the way things are working, you're just constantly inspired to keep creating. And that's
Mhm.
even not really been my experience since I was a kid, when you just made stuff because you made stuff. So
Yeah.
I think, I think the technology is the exchange part, but the most important part is the community aspect.
Okay. And which parts do you feel like could have met your needs a little bit better as you were working through this process?
I think one thing I'm really becoming conscious of is the focus on sales and total volume as and just another metric, just like you would in the days of Instagram. You know, how many followers do you have, and how many likes do you have, and all this kind of stuff. And actually, when when I zoom out and I try and have a long term perspective of it, that's not actually the important part. And when I look at the platforms that we're using, for me, it would be much better in a way to organize the work that I've created in a way that I don't need to go to somewhere like YouTube to showcase my stuff.
Hmm.
I can actually take people on a journey through the marketplaces that I've been using, and I think that's coming. To be honest with you, so kind of I kind of know that that's on the horizon, which would be great. But up until now, it's been very much focused on the original concept of what's the total volume, what's the 24-hour volume, are you trending, and I think these feel like metrics that I need to start that I am ignoring actually more and more and more as I go down this path, because it's not going to help me build anything long term. It's always going to keep me focused on short term uh, kind of dopamine hits. And actually, what I need is to create something that is going to last a long time and that's going to have value over a long period of time, not just monetary value, but cultural value as well.
Okay. And as you mentioned already, like you've recently become more involved with zero contracts and zero unbound, which we just had a look at. In terms of, as you describe it, like things having long-term value, not necessarily monetarily, but just existing and being there and having cultural value. What has made the zero contract approach appealing to you in that way?
Um, I think the first thing about it was that really caught my eye was just learning what IPFS was, because I'd heard people obviously talking about minting on chain, and I think my view was, you know what, it's all about perception. So if people think there's value in IPFS, then there's value in IPFS.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter if we try and like explain it to them and say, well, actually, it's not on chain. But since delving into zero contract and actually doing it myself, it's like there's a switch went off in my head that made me personally realize, oh, wait a minute, I can actually make the token my work, and that actually becomes way more significant for me. Um, Not just the work I'm putting out for others to see and enjoy with me, but for me personally to say, especially with the sprites, this is a game I'm putting all my passion into,
Yeah.
and I want these things that I'm creating to have some kind of permanent memory, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that's what really appealed to me about zero contract is the ability to mint your own artwork on chain, which I don't, as far as I know, and the reason why YesDem created it, because there was no ability to do that prior. It was always you had to use, like an app to create the artwork on, or it was limited by certain things.
Hmm.
But with zero contract, it's actually not limited by anything. And it's definitely true now. There's pretty much zero limitations apart from cost. So I think that's the most appealing part of it.
Okay. And you mentioned that you had sort of ongoing conversations with Yesem Zero, who sort of walked you through the process of learning how to do that. And I understand you created a tutorial for other artists interested in working with zero contracts. Why did you feel like it was important for you to share what you had learned in that process?
Um, I guess two things. Well, firstly, it wasn't just YesDem. I need to make sure it gets credited, because it was actually Kyle Flemmer who was the reason I started minting on fully on chain. Kyle Flemmer
Okay.
is an amazing pixel artist, and it was me reaching out to him that started my curiosity. He made the second collection, and so that spurred me on to make the third collection that was on zero contract. And then YesDem, I reached out to YesDem after that for help, and he was really good as well and really helped me. But I think it was one of those things that I'm a teacher. I have been a teacher in my past career for 10 years at one point, and I think it was just the need that I figured out something, and do I really let this stuff just belong to me? Especially when it's not mine that I create. I didn't create the zero contract. I just, with some help, figured out how to use it.
Yeah.
And so I felt I could break it down and make it easy for others. And I think that's just part of the community spirit, but also, yeah, I do like the teaching element of it. It gave me a chance to create a tutorial, which I think was, I find it enjoyable. And a lot of judgment there from people, I think, when they see that. But yeah, I do find it enjoyable, and it's just sharing something and helping others achieve what I achieved, and it's just sharing that. And since then, I think it has helped onboard people into zero contract, and it's really good to see what's come of that.
Okay. And here you are in 2025, having entered the space a few years ago. Obviously, there've been some significant changes. You've touched on this a couple of times already, but significant changes in the digital art and NFT marketplace, not just here in the Tezos ecosystem, but all across the blockchain space. As someone who, in spite of that, is still working a way to share his art with the world in this space, what do you believe makes the effort worthwhile?
I think this is no shade to anyone, but witnessing all these marketplaces close down over the last few years, firstly, it made me very glad that I chose the right path, because I could have easily been on any of those other marketplaces, which I think would have been unnecessary stress, but also kind of just made me feel a little bit lost as well, I think. So I feel like I've got a good grounding
Mm-hmm.
from where I've started. Um, so I think that's been a really important aspect of it. Could you repeat the question, because I think there's something else I wanted to answer.
I was talking about you touched on the sort of financial and sales and total value angle as far as like evaluating the worth of digital art and of NFTs. And what I'm asking is, as that shift has happened, and as like the days of huge cash rewards for putting something out there are kind of behind us now, and yet you're still here working in the space, building, telling your story, making your art. And my question is, with the chance of huge instant riches off the table, what do you believe now makes the effort worthwhile that you're putting in?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think I guess I never came in with the expectation for huge cash rewards, and mainly because I came in April 22, when that was kind of, it wasn't happening anymore, and a lot of stuff was, it felt like we were entering the bear market, and I was just learning what that was. So I feel like I had to build from a very like humble point. It wasn't like I came in and there was just money flying around everywhere, which people told me. Like if I'd have come in a few months earlier, it was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So I came in with the lower expectation.
Okay.
So I've not experienced any like loads and loads of cash flying around. For whatever sales I've made, I feel like I've had to slowly build towards it. And so now, with that kind of background, I'm just continuing to do that, and I'm seeing slow progress, and I'm seeing it build. And because I've got a long term mindset for the whole Retroman universe, I'm not expecting anything quick. I'm seeing it as a continued way to keep building, especially when I see, when I look on YouTube and I see creators getting their accounts shut down or cancelled, or, even on X, people losing their accounts. To know that where I'm putting my work out there is actually, nobody can control that. It's up to me. I think it just feels like I've chosen the right place to create this value for myself in terms of the story I want to tell, and what it will mean in the future, and no one can take that away from me. And I think that's really important.
Okay. And as I've mentioned a few times already, like all of the individual projects, the things we've seen, the short clips of the game, the films, etc. They're all themselves simply a part of a larger vision to build a Retroman universe. Where are you at with your larger vision for this project today?
So there's an interesting point that I wanted to bring up regarding this actually, because I remember when I first came in the space, a lot of people used to ask me, "Oh, we like your art," and I actually got used to get DMs like this. "We like your art, but we don't really know where to place you or what you are."
Okay.
And I thought, okay, that's interesting because I'm very multidisciplinary, and I didn't really have a way to place that or a way to direct that energy. I
Mm-hmm.
just liked experimenting. Um, but with the Retroman project, I've actually got a place to focus. So I'll do 3D artwork, or I'll do hand drawn illustration, or I'll do pixel art, or I'll do animation. And all of these things I'm creating are just me, like honestly expressing the way I want to tell this story.
Yeah.
Um, but what it doesn't do, particularly in the age of social media, is give you traction in one area. So someone could do a particular kind of artwork and keep making that artwork and get viral success in social media. And people can place them, people can understand it, and it makes sense to people.
Yeah.
I think when I release one kind of work and then I release a completely different medium, it becomes hard to place me. And I think then maybe the algorithm struggles, and there are all sorts of other things where people go, I don't get what that is, or why he's doing that. So for me, it's about continuously working on that. And again, long term vision. I'm still going to be creating all these different elements and bringing them together because in the long run, this will this will all be source material. That's how I see it. This is all source material that I'm creating. That one day, whenever the whole Retroman universe fully comes together, collides, and creates something that people can't miss, can't avoid, it's so powerful that they have to come and see it. They'll look back at all this stuff and say, well, how was it created?
Yeah.
That's just what I'm going to continue to do, regardless of the medium, regardless of the style or the approach. I'm just going to keep putting all these different things together.
Okay. And you mentioned Samsara the game. You're hoping to demo it in October. Obviously, making a game from scratch is a massive undertaking, but it sounds like you're sort of coming to the end of that process. What's next for Retro Manni and the Retroman universe after that? What should we look forward to seeing next?
I think after the game, um, the sights are set on putting together a body of work that ultimately cohesively tells the story of Retroman, which is about this uh, being that comes from another dimension, that was exiled from another dimension, and didn't know who he was. So there's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a personal aspect of it in terms of being lost as an individual and
Mm-hmm.
being found, and then finding a purpose. And his purpose ultimately is given to him that he needs to be, in this case, the savior of Earth. Not something he wanted to do, but something he's guided towards doing that gives him the answers that he was seeking when he was this person who was exiled,
Yeah.
who was kind of cast aside and treated as a nobody. He then ends up becoming this hero, and that's the story I want to tell. It's an
Okay.
age-old story. It's a very common story, the hero's journey and everything like that. But I want to do it through my lens and through my characters, whether that's through another game or whether that's through an animated cartoon or a film or a comic. I don't fully know in what way it will find itself, but I know the story, and I know that ultimately I want people to be able to take in that entire story and connect with it.
Okay. And until you sort of get the answer to that question, it sounds like your intention is just to continue making stuff.
Continue making stuff, absolutely, yeah. The story's there, it's just keep making stuff until something strikes. And part of me feels like the game could actually do that. The game could be the thing that starts it starts that momentum that
Okay.
I think has been dormant for a while.
Okay. We could go on all day, but we're almost at the end here. Um, if you'd like to get in touch with us, our social media contacts can be found at tezoscommons.org/TezTalks. We'd love to hear from you. Manni, Thanks so much for joining us today. It's always awesome to speak to the folks realizing the creative visions here in the Tezos ecosystem. Is there anything else you'd like to mention or touch on before we sign off here?
Firstly, just a big thank you for getting me back, and I really enjoyed it. In terms of things I'd like to mention, I guess keep an eye on both my Twitter profile, X profile, sorry, retro underscore Manni, but also Retroman underscore game,
Okay.
because that's where you'll find out about what's happening with the game. You'll see the Kickstarter campaign coming soon, the Steam demo coming soon. So yeah, just go and give me a follow over there and keep an eye out.
Okay. To everyone out there in Tezos land, thanks for joining us on TezTalks Live. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons, and our awesome guest has been Retro Manni, creator of Retroman. Now let's go explore the Retroman universe.